Hi there, it's Diane. Welcome to my basement. Today we're going to be learning about division. We're going to learn how to take a 3-digit number and divide it by a 1-digit number. Let's review what division is. Our book on page 18 tells us that division is the mathematical operation used to share a quantity, we call that the dividend, among a number of equal groups, which we call the divisor. The result, or the answer, is called the quotient. Our division sign is a dot, then a line, and then a dot. So when you see that, we say divided by. Let's look at the example they give us. 21 divided by 3 equals 7. So the way I look at it is I see a number divided into groups equals how many are in each group. So if I have 21 items, I divide them into groups of 3 or into 3 groups. I will have 7 items in each group. Well, there's something we need to look at, and that is division and how it's different than addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So if I had the number 100, can you see that? 121, and I added 22, which column do I begin adding in? Do I start in my ones, my tens, or my hundreds column? I start in my ones column or my units column. So 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 2 is 4, and I bring down my 1, 143. Let's look at subtraction. If I had 498 and I subtracted 231, which column do I begin in? My ones column. You're right, or my units column. So I have 8, take away 1 is 7. 9, take away 3. Did I hear the right answer? Did you say 6? Great. And 4, take away 2 is 2. So I would have 267. Let's look at multiplication. If I had 43 times 2, where do I begin multiplying? Which column? A little louder? My ones column or units column? Yes. So I would do 2 times 3 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8. 43 times 2 is 86. Now here's where it's different. If I have 406 and I divide it by 2, you might see it this way, written horizontally. You might have seen it written as 406 divided by 2. Which column do we begin division in? This is a little different. We don't begin in the units column anymore. Now we have to look at the value that is the highest. So we have to look at the 4. And if you see it written this way, you have to start with the hundreds column, because that's the highest value. The 4 has a value of 400. The 0 has no value, and the 6 has a value of 6. So this number is 406. So I would look first in my column with the highest value. So that would be our 4. How many times can 2 go into 4? 2 times. How many times can 2 go into 0? 0 times. And how many times can 2 go into 6? 3 times. It's the same here. If you had like a little multiplication, 2 times 2 is 4. We bring down the 0. 0 times 2 is 0. Bring down the 6. 3 times 2 is 6 without a remainder. So we subtract, remainder 0. So both times our answer is 203. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, you always start with your units column. Division, you need to start with the column that has the highest value. So keep that in mind. Let's go back and look at their example on page 18. So on 18 it says, you can represent division with base 10 objects. Oh, this is nice. So let's review our base 10 objects. We are going to need our blocks. So what does this block represent? What number does that block represent? Does anybody know? You have to be a little bit louder, please. 100, yes. The square represents 100 if it was 2D, right? Because when we draw, we just draw the square. It's actually 3D. So a square represents 100 because there are 100 of these smaller squares in this larger square. So what represents the stick, the long line? What number represents the stick in base 10? Well, if I had all these little squares and we counted them, I think I heard it out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's harder than you think. 6, 7, 8, 9, almost there, 10. So it takes 10 of these small squares or units to equal one of the sticks. So our stick represents 10. And we know, since our little square here is 1 and our stick is 10, then 10 tens equals 100. Because look, we can count by tens as well. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So if we line them all up, we know that our base 10 blocks goes 1, 10, 100. If you see it written out, you notice, I'll write it out for you. If you see it written out, you have 1, 10, 100. So basically, you're adding a 0 in the column before it. The column, you're adding a 1 in the column before it. So you're adding a 0 to the end. So we start with 1. That's a 1 in our units column. Then it's a 1 in our tens column and a 0 in our units column. And then it's a 1 in our hundreds column, a 0 in our tens column, and a 0 in our units column. Does that make sense? All right, here, let's move on. So, now that we reviewed all of that, let's try some practice. Did we finish with our understanding our example over here? Let's just make sure we understand our example before we move on. So they're showing us 212. Now remember, 212 is the number that we're going to divide into two groups. So if I ask you to divide 212 into two groups, sometimes my students, they take their paper and they make two groups, like two circles. And then they draw out their base 10 blocks. So it says represent 212. If these squares are our base 10 blocks, then we have 200, 110, and 2 units, right? That is 200, 10 and 2 is 12. 212. Would it help if I covered up the other number so it's less confusing for you? Would you agree that the 2 blues, the green, and 2 yellows equals 200, 10, 11, 12? 212. Okay. So if we were to look at 212, I want to put it into two groups. So this is group 1, and this is group number 2. Well, easily I can put 100 into one group, and easily I can put 100 into my second group. So there's 100 in each group. They show us that. It's also very easy to put a unit in one group and to put a unit in another group. Here's the tricky part, is that we have a 10 here. And I really can't put that 10 into a group easily, because if I put it in here, then this group is without it, and if I put it over here, this group is without it. So what they want us to do is to change the 10 into units. So I take 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I take my 10 and I exchange it for 10 units. And then, unit by unit, I can divide it up. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So my 10 is actually now 5 and 5, because 5 plus 5 is 10, right? And then I have that extra one that we divided in the beginning. So now I have 100 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 212 divided into two groups means that I have 100 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in each group. Let's move on. We're going to be on page 19 in your workbook, and we are going to look at 1A. So on 1A it says, find the result of each division. Use the representation of the dividend to help. That just means to draw using your base 10 blocks. You can draw the squares, the lines, and the little dots. 406 divided into groups of 2. I'm just going to draw a line down the center of my paper there. You got that? So now I have 2 groups. All right. So with the 2 groups, I have 406 divided by 2. I need to start in which column? Do I start with the units, the tens, or the hundreds? Yes, the hundreds. Okay, great. We remembered. Let's try that. So 4. Let's get a different pen that actually works. I love this pen. Here we go. So 1, that's 100, 200, 300, 400. Are you with me? If a large square is 100, then I have, you can write it in if you want, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you notice how I went back and forth? I made sure that I had enough for each group. So I have 100, 200, 300, 400. I have 2 in this group, and I put 2 in that group. Now look at the tens. Do I have any tens? I don't, so I can leave that alone. Now I look at my units. It says 6. So I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 400, and then I divide my units into 6. So let's count. In each group I have 1, 2, 2 hundreds, 0 tens, and 3 units. On this side I have 1 200, 0 tens, and 3 units. So 406 divided into 2 groups equals 203. And they show you exactly what I showed you. Do you think you know how to do B? B's a little bit different. It's different because we're going to have to do a little regrouping here. Let's try it out. So we start with which column? If I was to take 252 divided into 2 groups, so we can put a line down the middle again. So we have group 1 over here and group 2 over there. We have 2 different groups. Let's see. We start with the column with the highest value. It just happens to be in the hundreds column for this one. So 252 divided by 2. If I was to take 200, can I put it into 2 groups? Let's see. 100, 200. So yes, I can. Now look, we have to go to the tens column. So there's a 5. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no. I can put 4 evenly, but if I put 1 on this side, I don't have another one to put on the other side, in the other group. So what do I have to do for my 10 that's left over? I have to split it into ones. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that last 10, I divided it into units. So watch, I'm going to show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I took my stick of 10 and I divided it into 10 little units. So do I still have 50? 10, 20, 30, 40, and 10 units makes 50. So yes, I still have the value of 50. It's just that now I have 10, 20, 30, 40 using my tens, and 10 to make 50 using my units. But we're still not finished because I have my units column. My units is 2. So I can divide that by putting 1 in one group and 1 in my other group, because 1 plus 1 is 2. Does that make sense to you? So if I was to color this, I could have my blue squares, my green sticks, let's see, and my yellow units. So let's see if they equal the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So what I have is, let's add them up and make sure if I have 252. I have, in this group, ooh, I just knocked some on the floor. That's not good. Okay, so I have 100, 200, 210, 20, 30, 40, 241, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247, 248, 249, 250, 251, 252. So it works out. 252 divided by 2, so we put it into two groups, equals, how much did we have in each group? We had 100, 2 tens, and how many units? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. Let's look at this side. We had 1 in our hundreds, 2 in our tens, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in our units, or our ones column. 126. There you go. So what they've drawn for you is they took that 10 stick and they divide it into units just like we did. And then they put 5 on one side and 5 on the other, because 5 plus 5 is 10, and we needed to divide the 10 into 2 equal groups. Shall we move on? Yeah. Let's look at G. We're going to do this a little different. I want us to see if we can guess what the answer is going to be before we actually draw out our shapes, our squares and our sticks and our dots. So, if we just look at 122 divided by 2, we know we have to start in our hundreds column. So we have 122 divided by 2. If I had 1 Can I take 1 and divide it into 2? Some students are going to say, yeah, I can take 100 and divide it into 2. It would be 50 and 50. Because I know that 50 plus 50 equals 100. Let's look at the 2. The 2's value is 20. So if I took 20 and I divided it into 2 equal groups, some students know that 20 divided by 2 is 10 and 10, because 10 plus 10 is 20. And then if I have just the number 2 and I divide it by 2, I have 1 and 1, the value of 1 and 1. So if I add that up, I know that each group is going to have a value of 61. That's one way to solve this problem. Another way is by going, can 2 go into 100? No, I can't. If I had a 100 block here, I can't divide it into 2 like this. I'd have to break it down into tens. So some students, they look at the first 2 numbers and they say, oh wait, but I know 12 can divide into 2. So they go 60 and 60, because we know that the 12 here, it's 120. That's the value. So 120 can be divided into 60 and 60. And then they see the 2 in the units column, so they know there's 1 left over. So they go 60 plus 1 is 61 in each group, which is the same as 50, 10, and 1, which is 61. If you can't do the mental math, don't worry about it. We can do math many different ways and still get the same answer. Let's look at it with base 10 blocks. So, if I had 100, I can't put it into 2 groups equally. But I can take my 100 and divide it into 10 sticks of 10, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to remove my 100 square. And now I have 10 groups of 10, so I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 in each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 5. Now I have my tens column. There's a 2. Well, that's easy. If I have 2 and I need to put them in each column, then I divide. So I'll put 1 on this side and 1 on that side. And if I have 2 units at the end, I can put 1 in one group and 1 in the other group. Now all you have to do is add. Now remember, the sticks count as 10, so we have to count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And another 1. Add it together, you get 61. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Plus that extra 1 is going to equal 61. So if you do it with the base 10 blocks, you get 61. If you looked at it by going 2 into 12, which is 120, then you had 60 plus 1 was 61. And if you broke it down by knowing the values, so 100 divided by 2 is 50, 50. 20 divided by 2 is 10, 10. And 2 divided by 2 is 1 and 1. And you added it up, you got 61. Every time you got 61. And the answer was 61. You know, if you're slower than the person next to you, it really doesn't matter to me. It's not a race. Math isn't a race. I just want you to get it done properly. Slow and steady wins the race. Remember that. So here we go. 129 divided by 3. Decide how you want to solve this. 129 divided by 3. Some of us, we feel more comfortable visually and seeing the squares and the sticks and the dots. Some of us can pretty much just do it in our heads. Some of us need to see the value. Solve it the way that you feel most comfortable. I like to solve it different ways because it checks my math. So if I get the same answer twice, then it's more likely going to be correct. This one's a little harder when you say 100 divided by 3. So what I would probably do is I would go to 12. So 120 divided by 3. I know that that's 40 because 4 times 3 is 12 and the extra 0 at the end. So 12 or 120 divided by 3 is 40. So I would have 40, 40, 40. So what's different this time is we have 3 groups. You have to pay attention to that. If I took 129 and I'm dividing it into 3 groups, I would have 40, 40, 40. And then I have the 9 left over. So how many times, if I was to divide 9 into 3 equal groups, it would be 3, 3, and 3. Because I know that 3 times 3 is 9. So 40 and 3, 0 plus 3 is 3. Bring down my 4. 0 plus 3 is 3. Bring down my 4. It's always going to be 43. Maybe that's not your style. It's quite all right. Maybe you like to see it visually. 100 divided by 3. So I'm going to have my 3 columns. I know I can't do that evenly, so I'm going to take my 100 and divide it into tens. So let's go. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. But wait, I have 10 left over. So what am I going to do with that 10 left over? I'm going to add it to the 10 that's, well, what you can do is you can just have a 10, right? And then you look at your next number and it says 20. So I know that it's another 2 tens. So I had a 10 left over. I don't know if you want to put it at the bottom, like leftover bottom. Sure. And then I add my 2 extra 10s. And I see, oh wait, I have 30. So I'm going to divide it 10, 20, 30. Do you see where that extra 10 came from? Let's count it again. 100, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So when I took my 100, I'll show you with these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, here I have 10, which is my 100. I put them into groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I still have my 10 left over out of 100. So I'm just going to leave it this way at the top. And I'm going to go on to my tens column. And my tens column has 20, a 2 in it. So its value is 20. So look, I'm going to add my extra 2. And now I have 30, 10 from my 100, 20 from my tens column. So now I can divide it. I can add it to each group evenly. And then my units, I have 3. 1, 2, 3. So my units, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3. So if you want to, you can add them all up and see if it equals 129. Let's count. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 10, 20. So 120, 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's a mistake. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Look at that. There's a 9 in our ones column, but I only put 1, 2, 3. We have to keep going. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Did I get anybody? Okay, so now we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 110, 120, 121, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 129 total, divided into 3 groups. Each group is going to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. 129 divided by 3 is 43 in each group. We got that earlier as well. So I would say 99% confident that the answer is going to be 43. Yes, the answer is 43. Okay, last one. We have 56 divided by 4. How would you do this one? Let's do it with our 6. Now, to divide into 4, I usually just go like this. So now I have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. I always make my groups first. It's easier for me. And then you can go by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, I have an extra 10 left over, so I can do it with dots. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 4, 55, 56. So I see that 56 divided by 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56 is going to be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 in that group, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 in that group, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If you want to check, you could also do 14 plus 14 plus 14 plus 14, because if you add up every group, it should equal 56. It actually does. So you have 56 divided by 4 is 14. I hope that helps you. If you want to try a little extra practice, you can always try this example. Grandian has made 210 cookies for 7 families to share. Let's use our base 10 blocks to find the exact share of cookies for each family. Base 10 blocks. So I'm going to have 210 cookies, but I need to put it into 7 equal groups. Oh my goodness, 7 equal groups. Let's try this on paper. I love Post-its. Here we go. So I need 7 groups. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you see that? 7 groups. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, Group 5, Group 6, and Group 7. Grand Diane has made 210 cookies for 7 families. And I want to share equally. I have 200. I know it's going to be very difficult for me to divide them into 7 when I only have 2 of them. So I'm going to use base 10 blocks. How many base 10 blocks, how many of the sticks do I need for 200? I already have my 10s, but I need 200. If 10 are in 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 are in 100. How many do I need for 200? I'm going to need another 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me use this one, 10. So for 200, I need 20 base 10 blocks. Let's do my hundreds first. So 10 for each 100. That means I need 200, right? So let's take 200 into 7 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to go 1 up, 1 down so you can see it better. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't have enough. I don't have equal. But if we look at the problem, it said 210. So that was 200. I can use my units blocks for one more group of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So do we all agree? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups here. And 210, if I was to divide it into 7 groups, would be 30 in each group. Because I know 30 plus 30 is 60, 70, 80, 90, 110, 20, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 210. So yes, Grand Diane has made 210 cookies for 7 families to share. Using our base 10 blocks, we know that each family is going to get 30 cookies. Now here's the tricky one. Let's see if you can get this. How many more cookies would each family get if there were 700 cookies? 700 cookies instead of just the 210. How many times? So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, how many cookies does each family get? If they had 700 cookies. I don't have enough base 10 blocks, but we can draw it out for you. Just gonna get my whiteboard marker. Ooh, let's go with purple. So if I had 7 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do it like this. So group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, what happened there? 7. I have 7 families, 7 groups, and I want to divide 700 cookies. How many cookies will each family get? We'll put 100 in each group first. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. So I don't know what a family's going to do with 100 cookies, but if I had 700 cookies, maybe they're big families. If I had 700 cookies and I divided it into 7 families, each family would get 100 cookies. That's a lot of cookies. 100 for each family. Was that my question? Let's go back and look at the question. How many more cookies would each family get if there were 700 cookies instead of 210? You have to remember a lot of information here. So if I had 700 cookies for each family of 7, for 7 families, each family would get 100, right? We know that because we just figured it out. But now you have to remember how many each family got if I only had 210 cookies. Do you remember how many cookies each family got? It was 30, wasn't it? So, if I had 700 cookies, each family got 100 cookies. If I had 210 cookies to give out, each family had 30 cookies. The question is, how many more cookies would each family get if there were 700 cookies instead of 210 cookies? So what do you think the answer is? How many more cookies would each family get if there were 700 cookies instead of 210 cookies? How do you solve this problem? It's a little difficult. You have 2 numbers. Well, you have a lot of numbers. You have 700, 210, 130. We had to do division. Now we're going to have to do subtraction, because I need to know how many more cookies would each family get. The way I would do it is I would take 100, because now I know that they're getting 100 cookies. I'll use the paper that's there. So now I know that if I had 700 cookies, each family would get 100 cookies. For each family of if there were 7 families, right? If I had 210 cookies, each family, we said, if there were 7 families, would get 30 cookies. I need to know how many more cookies they would get. So that means what's the difference between 100 versus the 30? So what's the difference between 100 cookies or getting 30 cookies? When we're trying to find the difference between two numbers, we need to subtract. 0. Now we have to remember we start in the ones column. So 0 take away 0 is 0. If I have 0, can I take away 3? No. So I'm going to move the 100. I'm going to change the 100 and make it 10 tens because I know that 100 equals 10 tens. So now I have 10 tens. 10 take away 3 is 7. So how many more cookies would each family get if there were 700 cookies instead of 210? Each family will get 70 more cookies. Whew! That is a multi-step problem. Now you are ready to complete pages 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 in your workbook. Stay curious, and I will see you next time. Bye.